Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. Time to do it all over again one more time. It's Wednesday. Greg Dworkin standing by, getting his Rafto stories ready to go. His first visit of the Trump era, in case you were wondering. And, wow. Well, there's a lot to cover, of course. Still more purported, I guess, executive actions purporting to take various actions from out of the White House, most of which, illegal, unconstitutional in the cases where they actually try to do something. But about, 40, maybe 50% of these things seem to be essentially executive orders saying, I hereby order people to do the things I like, whatever they may be, or find some way of doing the things that I like, whatever they may be. And let's see, word goes out in the federal employee community in which I live. There's one big gated federal employee community in the Washington, D.C. area, Maryland, Virginia, D.C., even out to West Virginia, really. They're letting it be known that if you're in the federal government and you are DEI, whatever, you don't come to work today. You're going to be fired shortly. I think everybody's on paid leave. I think what they're trying to get at here is if you are actually on board at a federal agency or whatever, a department or agency, and your job is what used to be designated as the DEI officer. That is an HR person that was responsible for seeing to it that there was some workplace diversity for you. You are not supposed to report to work. You're on paid leave until we can figure out exactly how to identify and fire you. And so, okay, we'll see what that's supposed to mean and how long it lasts and whether they are able to figure it out. But mass confusion in the area and people not sure whether they are implicated in all of this. Should I be reporting to work? Should I not be reporting to work? Of course, I guess some people are like, oh no, stay home in inclement weather again. It's not snowing and it's just extremely cold. And I'll get paid. But of course, it puts them on notice and on edge. How long will I continue to be paid? And also changes, I understand, over at the Justice Department and probably elsewhere. But lots of career employees, not political appointees from the past administration, but career employees being reassigned. I think, I don't know if I put this story aside, but we can find it pretty easily, I think. But over at the Justice Department, there were some very clear examples of people who were involved in prosecuting various things that irritated Trump. For instance, I think some of the people from the criminal division who reviewed and approved the FBI's application to conduct the search at Pervalago to look in the sex dungeon bathrooms to see if they could find the stolen classified documents, and did, and took pictures of them. We all saw them. You caught me red-handed, so you're being reassigned to some other place that we hope you'll hate so much that you'll quit. Because, interesting though, Mr. Muscular Leader hasn't found the wherewithal to just say you're fired. His favorite tagline, allegedly. But I guess some lawyer must have told him you can't just do that, but you can reassign people. And Mr. Muscular Dictator for a day says, well, all right, I guess I'll take that. And, it sucks. And it's targeted and it should be illegal in itself. And but it takes a while to vindicate your rights in this country. And nobody knows whether you'll be able to do it anymore, given this Supreme Court. I just found it interesting that Mr. Take Charge and do what I want to do still finds himself constrained by the rule of law, at least for the time being, and that's worth noting, right? I know it's everybody's favorite pastime to say, well, he'll just ignore that and the courts will uphold him. Yeah, probably, eventually. But fight it out and make sure that it happens. It might become embarrassing. He may draw a judge at the trial level that says, you're out of your mind. No way. You're completely wrong about this. And they may be reversed either on appeal or emergency appeal directly to the Supreme Court by a partisan court. It's true, but make that embarrassment happen. You might as well illustrate for people what's going on. Price of eggs through the roof. Just wanted to note that for the record. Not really my issue necessarily, although I like eggs. Just as much as the next person, possibly even more because of DEI. I don't know how that would work, but just another day. By the way, 88 days to Easter. You got 88 days to fix this egg shortage and egg price thing, or else Easter is canceled. Donald Trump, we'll get to this story too, so mad at the Episcopal Bishop of Washington, D.C., who told him, that he needs to extend mercy to somebody. So that makes him angry. He went to church and found out about it would be in everybody's interest if people were kind and merciful to one another. And that pissed him off to no end. He had not heard about this portion of the church. Well, nobody told me that it wasn't about beating people up. Anyway, he's very mad at that. So he's canceling Easter with high egg prices. People around the country taking pictures of the empty egg section at their supermarket with super high prices. Anyway, but bird flu on top of the price thing is making eggs hard to come by. Easter is canceled, but it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. We'll all, of course, be suffering from the next pandemic, and he'll force us into the pews because it will be a beautiful thing. You remember that April 2020, he declared. Actually, earlier on in March, in the throes of the panic of the pandemic. We don't know what the hell this thing is. We don't know what to do about it. We got no way of treating it. People are dying left and right. Wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if we were reopened for Easter? And it was like 2 years before it was safe to get together again without masks on. And even then, it really wasn't safe to get together without masks on. People did it all the way through anyway. You know the story. You were there. Anyway, Easter looming again, and I guess, hey, why not? It's a goofy thing to focus on, but of course it's a kitchen table issue, and everybody is seeing it with their own eyes. I mean, I see pictures. California people are like, it's crazy, and it's like they're putting $8 a dozen prices on these eggs, and there are none to go around. I saw a picture today. If I just went on social media, type in the search term eggs, and went looking for photos. Every city. I happened to grab one from Atlanta. It's the case here. But in addition to, like I said, the prices and the bird flu woes, there's also word that external communications from health agencies now allegedly, according to one of these executive orders, banned as well, which I guess translates to if the CDC finds out that 100 people got salmonella in Atlanta, they can't tell you. You're just going to have to find out for yourself. We'll put up a note on the door. If you come and read it, you'll find out what's going on. But don't tell anybody because you can't pass that on. All right, like I said, it's a fire hose of information. We haven't even gotten to Elon Musk's Nazi salute, which is a terrorist arm jab, I think, is what the news people usually call it when somebody does something like that. Anyway, lots to round up. Greg Dworkin is here. He knows about things. We might as well make use of this. Yes? Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Cold. How are you?
Yeah, it is. It's pretty. I guess this is the coldest day of the year so far.
It was -1 when I woke up, which is pretty cold for Connecticut. I mean, I know my friends around the country are writing in about how cold it is where they are. And it's cold. It's colder in Maine. It's colder in New Hampshire. But it's pretty cold for Connecticut to be -1. I'll tell you this.
Go to Greenland now.
Yeah, I let Abby out.
Yeah.
And I saw her run back to the house as fast as she has since she was a puppy chasing squirrels.
Yeah, it's quite cold here. I think our wind chill brings it to about -4.
It's cold, boss. Let me in.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. Well, it's a bitter day.
I mean, she's a 14-year-old dog with arthritis who doesn't run like she used to, but today she did.
Yeah, well, that'll cost her, but at least she's icing the joints nicely. So, all right, well, rest up, Abby.
Yeah, well, I gave her doggy a leave, so she's all set.
Yeah, all right. Right. It's rough out there.
So let's
by
talk
executive
about
order,
eggs. Not exactly
we're all going
eggs.
to Florida.
We're
Okay.
going to talk about Bakersfield, California, since you started off with that.
Okay.
I got other stuff to talk about, but we'll start with this.
Bakersfield? I did this?
Bakersfield, California is located in Kern County, which is known for its agriculture. Grapes,
right.
citrus, almonds, pistachios, and milk. It's a majority Latino city.
Oh, okay.
Got about 400,000 people in it. And the day after Trump's inauguration, it was targeted for immigration raids. I mean, you heard about Chicago and then backing off and stuff like that. They didn't back off in California.
Oh, warmer, I guess. There,
immigration raids, and this is by Gabe Ortiz, who's a pretty good reporter. Immigration raids targeting Bakersfield farm workers are a frightening preview of Trump's bloody mass deportation agenda. Why am I bringing this up now in regard to what you said? Because 75% of farm workers didn't show up yesterday. 75% stayed home.
To avoid raids?
Yes.
They weren't like scooped up, or at least we don't think so.
Have sent, quote, shockwaves through the entire community. People aren't showing up at the local diners. I mean, it's hurting business. This is what's going on.
Diners, that is serious.
And if
how are they going to find out how much they love Trump?
Business owners, small business owners typically are Republicans. But if farm workers don't show up for work, the price of groceries is going to go up.
Yes.
And that's relevant because that was what people elected Trump to take care of.
So they say. Yes, right.
So they say. So they felt.
Eggs. Now you can't have even granola because almonds, pistachios and granola. I guess some granolas. Citrus, grapes, your grape juice.
An outrage that pistachios.
Winos are pissed. Yeah. Look, this is what you eat. None of you MAGA guys are picking grapes. Yeah. And
I'm old enough to remember the old-fashioned ones that were dyed red, so your fingers were red for like 3 days.
Yeah, that's right. I do remember that. Why did they do that?
I don't know.
That is odd. I hadn't thought about that in a long time. Maybe ever. But I do remember them. And pistachios haven't been that color since a million years ago.
I'm trying to think of something to say that is qualified for cooperative interruption, and I can't think of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess we're astonished into silence at this. Let's take these delicious pistachios and put some cancer juice on them. All right.
In any case.
What a dumb idea that was.
America's rural and agricultural regions will be the hardest hit, and one example of the indiscriminate nature of the sweeps, agents reportedly harassed and detained a Latino U.S. citizen, including slashing his vehicle's tires after he refused their demands to turn over his keys.
That's
the local news outlet said. The enforcement operations across Bakersfield came one day after Congress certified Trump's win.
Right. I did see that story, and it was one of a million outrage stories about cops stopping people. Where do they now slash people's tires? What's that about? That never happened. Well,
because the guy was going to drive away and they wanted to stop him. But, hey, listen, when you let your brown shirts out of prison, you're basically giving permission structure to do these things. It's like, what's going to happen to you?
Yeah, they're emptying their prisons into our country.
Sarah Fuentes, store manager of the local gas station, said it was profiling purely field workers. Fuentes said that at 9 a.m., when the store typically gets a rush of workers on the way to pick oranges, 2 men in civilian clothes and unmarked Suburbans started detaining people outside the store. Not people with FedEx uniforms, stopping people who look like they work in the fields. One customer pulled in just to pump gas, and agents approached him and detained him.
Hey, I'm driving to a field. You better stop me.
Right. Fuentes has lived in Bakersfield all her life and says she's never seen anything like it. None of the regular farm workers showed up to buy breakfast on Wednesday morning. No field workers at all. So this is going on, and what I'm saying is this is absolutely positively on the one hand, targeting farm workers. Sure. And on the other hand, that means food prices are going to go up.
Not hamburgers. They come from Amazon. So, I'm sure all these people, I know somewhere out there, if you look, you'll find somebody on Twitter saying, it doesn't affect me. I use DoorDash. That's how I get my food.
Here's the thing. Okay. Yes. I was sort of browsing on Twitter.
With the browser.
Looking for people I know. I have a carefully collated list, so I don't see a lot of the bad stuff there.
Good for you.
And a guy I follow, Ari Kovler, said, I'm talking to Republican friends who are delighted with the Trump executive orders that they've heard about. When I asked about birthright citizenship or pardoning the violent J6ers, or the crypto guy, they just say they haven't heard about it and it's probably fake. In other words, they mimic exactly what Republican senators say.
Yeah, I'm sorry I can't comment on that one. I haven't read the tweet.
My point is
posted on the White House website.
That when you talk about things like targeting farm workers,
yes,
when prices go up, that's the thing that breaks through the bubble. And that's what I meant when I put my abbreviated pundit roundup today, and I said it's the year of FAFO. Well, no, nobody's going to find out. Look at this guy, and you're only in your bubble and stuff like that.
When they're not finding out.
Food prices go up because of what you did, people are going to find out.
Yeah, they're not finding out. Oh my God, this means Trump is a criminal. They're not coming to that conclusion. Not yet.
No, and they're not finding out because they
will.
turned on the nightly news and Lester Holt told them. They're finding out because they go to the grocery store and they find there aren't any eggs, and the ones there are only the organic ones, which cost more, and they cost a fortune.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So they are they're finding out. They may not. They may be playing games and trying to blame somebody else for them, but they are finding out. That is true. You can't avoid that. There are some things that you can't be cynical about everything.
You wind up making a list
That's very cynical
of things that say, well, they'll never find this. Yeah, they're going to find this out. It takes a while.
Yeah.
It takes a long time for this stuff to sink in. Here's another one, and at the very top of the list I sent you this morning, the Rafto Stories, TM.
Cling to this raft.
Is a clip I would like you to play.
Oh, right. Okay. I didn't prepare properly for that. I see the big X.
But you knew it.
That should remind me that, if you see if it's marked with an X, it probably means you're supposed to play some audio. So let's see. All right. Let's see. I think I've pocketed it, and the computer's frozen because it's very cold here.
You see, the whole point of cooperative, interrupting is to give you time to do these things.
Yeah, right.
When
Please
I don't,
say
you just have
while I'm
there's
clicking.
This silence. There's I'm not ready yet. I haven't done this yet. I'm doing this.
You don't see this because this is a radio show, but
I try to cover
Nazi saluting while I'm doing this. Okay. All right. Let me let the blue circle spin for a little while here.
Buffering.
We should be about ready. I'm gonna have to pause it, back it up, turn up the volume. Ready? Okay, so this is an Aaron
Donald
Rupar
Trump
clip
during his signing ceremony, when in fact he did sign a bunch of stuff.
Yes, we think. I mean, he moved a pen around. I don't know what's on the paper, and neither do you. All right, let's see. Here's a minute because it's on Blue Sky worth of. Oh no, it isn't. It's on Twitter. Oh, but it's formatted for Blue Sky compatibility at 1 minute. All right.
Confident are you, Mr. President, that you can keep the ceasefire in Gaza and conclude the 3 phases of this deal?
Okay. Can everybody hear that one? The question is, how are you convinced or something? Can you keep the ceasefire in Gaza? That's the question? Okay.
I'm not confident. That's not our war. It's their war, but I'm not confident. But I think they're very weakened on the other side.
Do you support the 3 states?
Gaza, boy, I looked at a picture of Gaza. Gaza is like a massive demolition site. That place it's really got to be rebuilt in a different way.
Do you plan to help rebuilding Gaza?
I might. Gaza is interesting. It's a phenomenal location. On the sea.
Wow.
Best weather. Everything.
You hadn't heard this?
It's like,
no, but we've heard these plans before. Jared Kushner's going to build condos on the ocean there.
Yeah, well, keep going.
It's on the sea. It's also near a river.
You got to hear the whole thing to get the whole.
Oh, okay. Well, I was creatively interrupting.
The whole gut punch.
All right, here we go.
Beautiful things could be done with it, but that's very interesting. But some fantastic things could be done with Gaza.
How do you see the future in governance for Gaza?
Well, it depends. I can't imagine you could have. Well, you certainly can't have the people that were there. Most of them are dead.
Whoa. Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, it's a beautiful real estate opportunity.
Of course, that's his view
of
everything.
The people who were going to block me from developing it, they're dead, Yeah, that's like us.
Yeah, nice
coincidence.
Right, nice oceanfront you got here. Hope nothing happens to you.
Too bad something happened to it.
Yeah, right.
So
I looked at a picture.
You want to add to the list of FAFO?
Yeah.
I would say Dearborn voters,
Yeah.
the abandoned Biden,
Well,
abandoned Trump
anyway.
voters. And again, you're going to turn around and say, well, they're not feeling that. I talk to people. It's only 3 days.
Yeah. No, they're feeling
This
it.
is going to take a while. All of this stuff is going to take a while. This kind of sentiment is so prevalent, there's no way Trump can hide it.
Yes.
It's going to come out. So there's another on the list.
Yeah, and again, that's a narrow segment of people. The truth was that eventually most people said, I know, I understand. I was looking to pressure Biden and then Harris, but ultimately we understand that Trump is far worse. But there's a good solid, there's going to be several thousand people who are like, I never imagined that he would be so bad, and I'm so wrong for having done this, and yet so right somehow. But okay. Yeah, I know. That was a big theme all the way through the election, and I think at the end, the vast majority of people understood what was happening. But there are holdouts, and you hope they FO. I really do hope they F right the O.
It's one of a long list.
Yeah.
Of things that are going to be just like this.
Diners.
Then I guess the next one is the next one's going to be the crypto industry. This one is from the AP this morning. Trump's embrace of meme coins sours mood in crypto industry.
Yes. I did discuss this a little bit yesterday, but it always needs more clarification.
Locking him in the room and saying, I'm going to drop a coin, and you,
right.
You masters of the universe, are going to get, squeezed out of it because I'm cornering frozen orange juice futures.
Right.
Without
and I'm orange as well. Yeah, I read a little bit yesterday. Someone had collected tweets from crypto bros of all sorts around the world and around the country saying, I'm really starting to think he doesn't doesn't understand crypto, or he's out to sabotage us. I'm really rethinking my vote. I don't know whether they really are or not. But yeah, lots of people who are like, I thought he was pro crypto, and he's pro giving himself money from crypto, and will ruin us to do it. All right, cool.
Okay, next.
Can't even afford an egg.
22 states sue to stop Trump's birthright citizenship order. That one's from the New York Times. Lawsuit to block the president's executive order is the first salvo in what is likely to be a long-running legal fight over immigration policy.
Sure. Good.
And Steve Vladek, who's a constitutional lawyer, says Trump has vowed to go after birthright citizenship on his first day in office. He's going to lose, but in a way that may well provide cover for other controversial immigration measures. And he writes, to make a long story shorter, I have no doubt Trump will try to do something, as you pointed out in the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
A lot of this is for the press, and I don't think voters are stupid, but I think
that's
the press
nice. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they're also on the list of FAFO.
Yeah.
They basically are being quoted anonymously as saying things to other reporters who are writing this up as stories. Things like, the last 4 years were so boring, they just made us speak to subject matter experts off the record. There was no reason to go to press conferences. If you weren't in the first 2 rows, you weren't going to get a question. Now Trump talks to us. Yeah, he may curse us out. He may tell us he's going to kill us, but he talks to us.
Yeah.
He pays attention to us, and it's going to be a lot more exciting than they're next on the list of FAFO.
Yep. That's true. I saw that quote, and people, of course, passing that one around. And, these guys just need to be in different jobs if this is what validates them. People are threatening my life, but I love it.
Yeah,
by the way, that picture or the Times article you just sent about the 22 states suing, I just want to point out the photo that they used to illustrate this is of him doing more of those executive order signings, but not at the White House like the previous illustrative picture, but this one, on Inauguration Day, he in between the luncheon and the inaugural balls, he did a rally, because that's all he does in life, but at Capital One Arena, whichever. But the rally what he did there, as I guess in addition to giving a speech.
That was the substitute for the parade.
Yeah, that's right. And they set up a little desk with a presidential seal, and he sat there like a loaf and signed a couple of orders and showed them around. Like you're going to be able to see that from the nosebleed
like Ronald Reagan
seats.
used to, with one letter and a different pen, another letter and a different pen. He had 100 of those, so if he had done that, he'd still be signing them now.
That's true too. I was not concerned, but I was concerning myself.
Give away the pens to supporters for some reason. People want them. I don't know why.
You used to do that, right? The pen that he used to sign this usually important piece of legislation.
Thing that put you in jail. Yeah, you can have it.
But not that. And of course, they used to be nice ceremonial pens, and they would have the president's name and the White House on it, and it would be a souvenir. And then he uses Sharpies, and I have a dozen of those.
Yeah, somewhere or other. I have a bunch of swag I got when I went to the White House for something or other.
Yeah, they give you stuff, but not this one. He keeps all the things for himself. Anyway, so he signed a couple of things. Imagine you go to a rally, and now the rally is he sits at a desk and writes on, scribbles his name over and over again. It's like waiting in line at a book signing. That's the rally. So no wonder he had to get Elon to get out there and give a terrorist fist jab thing in the air. Whatever. We're not allowed to call it a Nazi salute, despite the fact that it looks like one and is one. But you're supposed to say you're not sure what kind of salute it was.
Well, I'll tell you this. The Nazis think it was one.
That's right, too. I did grab that. The AP headline, they put it in interesting fashion. But the point of the headline was, okay, everybody claims to not know what it was, but the Nazis say, hey, thanks for doing our salute. So. Right.
Yeah, it's the same thing as that okay thing.
Yeah,
I
pretty
don't
much.
Really know what it is.
It's a circle game.
People who know what it is, they love it.
Oh yeah, surveyor's marks, not crosshairs. That's not a Jewish star. It's a 6-pointed sheriff's badge. We've been through this before. Right. But AP said something like they called it a straight arm gesture.
Well, let's do more Steve Vladeck, constitutional lawyer, after the break.
Okay, we'll do that. And I remind you that however many years ago, the press had no problem whatsoever calling a fist bump between the Obamas a terrorist fist jab. But we don't know what this thing is from history.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We were anxious to get back. That was something. This break is too long.
I was telling David, 9:30 is coming around really, really slowly. I think it's probably the time of year, the angle of the sun, and executive orders, slowing time, all this stuff.
Cold weather. When you're measuring the outdoor temperature in Kelvin, things slow down.
Yeah, this is true. So Steve Vladeck, constitutional lawyer, says, to make a long story shorter, I have no doubt Trump will try to do something that looks like restriction of birthright citizenship. Whatever he attempts might even meet with at least some initial success, although it be harder to implement than the travel ban.
Yes.
When there was an immediate opportunity
Good point.
to deny entry. But as for cynical folks and constitutional interpretation, there's compelling reasons to believe birthright citizenship isn't going anywhere anytime soon. The larger issue is a possibility that headlines about Trump being rebuffed may obfuscate more effective but perhaps no less legally dubious shifts in immigration policy in the new administration. Then he goes around and talks about it.
Yeah, that's okay.
Not being an expert on it, the reason I bring it up is because you can add that to the list of people who, really basically said, I know he said it, but I don't really think he's going to do it. And then he's trying to do it.
Yeah.
But
well, you shouldn't doubt that.
About birthright citizenship and what it's about. So that was worth going into.
Yeah. I have no doubt that he'll try to do things or that he will pull stunts that make it look like he's trying to do things. That is easy enough to do that I don't have any doubts about that. But yeah, but a good point, and I like that he brought up the immigration, the Muslim ban, as Trump called it, because I was reminded of it yesterday when I guess yet another of these executive actions is allegedly to revoke the policy which ordinarily prevents immigration officers from raiding or effecting arrests of suspects in sensitive areas like churches, hospitals, and schools. You know, if you're actually seeking sanctuary in a church, they're supposed to forbear from bursting in and raiding the place. And that has allegedly been revoked as well. And I was reminded of the resistance, like probably the most significant, concrete, and successful actual act of straight up resistance that I recall from the first Trump administration was to the Muslim ban, where people actually went to the airports to try and prevent things. That lawyers went to try to represent people who were being questioned, and just ordinary citizens basically showed up to witness this thing so that they couldn't simply effect this policy in darkness and in secrecy, and they ended up losing in court, but they also backed down on the spot. And I'm sort of thinking, if you're talking about now changing policy such that you're going to end up producing video, cell phone video of ICE officers bludgeoning and beating people, holding hands outside of a church in order to get in and drag grandmothers out.
Yeah, well, it's certainly not good optics.
Right. And I'm thinking, though, that this is another opportunity. It's a rare opportunity for some of these things for resistance to Trump policy that can manifest itself in millions of people actually standing in the way of it. And that was the most effective policy defeat, I think, that I saw out of the first 4 years, and it's replicable in this one. We'll see. I'm hoping they never do anything, but I do think that there's a real opportunity for actual people power to put a stop to that. That one of a million. But
right.
Take it.
By the way, one of the other things he did is revoke an executive order dating back to Lyndon Johnson's era that says that if federal contractors try to negotiate, they have to be fair and unbalanced about it, and not discriminate. And he got rid of that.
Fair and balanced.
Now that one's easy to bring back as soon as the next president comes. The pardons of the J6 people, not so much.
Right. So that one might be irreversible, but this one is straight out of the Civil Rights Act. And if you want to be a federal contractor, you have to be fair in your hiring practices. No, we're going to get rid of that one too. That one I think could be slow to die too, because that's been employment law and practice for every HR professional still in existence.
Right. So you can't just get rid of that right away. That's why I want to go back to that Bladdock piece, because he talks about the slowness of even bringing up some of this birthright citizenship stuff. But, it's a good social studies history lesson about what's going on here. He says, ratified shortly after the end of the Civil War, the Citizenship Clause was meant unambiguously to overrule the Supreme Court's Dred Scott case, in which the court had infamously ruled that slaves and their descendants were not and could not be citizens of the United States.
Yes.
In plain terms, those both born in the United States and subject to its jurisdiction are citizens, full stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean,
this is FAFO, non-white voters who voted for Trump, who didn't consider this sort of stuff, who said he'd never do this kind of thing.
Or never think
again,
they never
they're not
heard
going
about
to
it.
read Steve Vladek, but this stuff makes the rounds. It just takes time. Yeah. Recently, Vladek wrote, some commentators have seized on the subject to the jurisdiction thereof thing, because what it says, 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. That seems unambiguous to a non-lawyer. Some commentators have seized on the subject to the jurisdiction thereof, saying that it only applies to those who have lawful immigration status, and therefore we get to decide whether it applies or not. And they brought that case and that argument up before. They've brought it to the Fifth Circuit. They brought it to Judge James Ho.
Oh, yeah. I remember
famous for being a right-wing nutjob.
And having a funny name.
And in 2006, he said the argument cannot be reconciled with either the text or the original understanding of the Citizenship Clause. So no.
Oh, can't it? Oh, really? Yeah, well.
And Vladeck writes, indeed, there are 3 different reasons why it would be virtually impossible for Trump to do this. Obstacle 1, which is the thing that you were alluding to. Existing federal statutes. There's a bunch of them that are just wrapped around this.
True, and not
and
easy
then
to
he
get
says
around.
obstacle number 2, and this is one of those things you have to go look up. The Wong Kim Ark case.
You don't have to. Well, I mean, you could look it up. If you went to law school, you might say, what? And then you'll say, oh, yes, right, that one.
1898.
See?
After exhaustively retracing the historical understanding of citizenship in pre-revolutionary England, the Supreme Court explained the real object of the subject to the jurisdiction thereof language was to exclude 3 classes of individuals: Native Americans, children born of alien enemies and hostile occupation, and children of diplomatic representatives of a foreign state. That's it.
Yep.
Otherwise, anybody else, you're in.
Yeah. That was so that's the one that sets the standard. Yeah.
Right? So there's that. In other words, you can't pigeonhole it as a 126-year-old decision. It didn't speak to the matter at hand. It specifically identified the only exceptions to the Citizenship Clause, and the Supreme Court made clear twice since then that, it holds. So you got that. And then obstacle number 3, the cynical weakness of the invasion argument. Enter, or re-enter, Judge Ho. In a recent interview with a friendly blogger that some might construe as an audition for a promotion, Ho has clarified he thinks there's an important exception to his 2006 essay, and that he insinuates Wong Kim Ark didn't consider that children born to enemy soldiers while they're invading the U.S. obviously aren't covered by the Citizenship Clause. Children of undocumented immigrants who might have likewise invaded the U.S. maybe not.
Oh, who might have likewise? Or is he saying he considers this an invasion? Or
he considers this an invasion, exactly.
All right. No, he's in line with the Trump administration. I was wondering whether, if you're sitting abroad thinking about an invasion,
right?
And
so
your
the
kids
upshot of
try
all
to
of
get
this is that
naturalized.
for Trump to be able to take any real bite out of birthright citizenship, he'd have to persuade the Supreme Court to read a statute to mean something other than what it's been understood to mean for 158 years. Not impossible with these guys. To ignore what the court's predecessors said in this Wong Kim Ark case about the breadth of birthright citizenship, overrule the 2 more recent cases recognizing children of undocumented immigrants as citizens, collapse the distinction in Wong Kim Ark and historical practice between hostile occupation and invasion, and even then, persuade 5 justices that undocumented immigrants are invading the U.S. for constitutional purposes. And I understand that we live in an age of cynicism about the courts, but I'm pretty confident this just ain't going to happen.
Yeah, I will say, for some faint praise, Roberts has always been on the bubble about things like that, and very often will show up with, no, that's just not law. Sorry, that's just not the way it works. And Amy Coney Barrett is upset. She studied hard and went to a top law school. And
so she would know what that case
angry
is
about
that nobody
this
like me would know.
Yeah, well, she would. Even Brett Kavanaugh will know what the case was, even drunk as he was. But
yeah, even when he's sober, he'd know.
Yeah, but still, there are at least, that's the only saving grace we've got here. Besides the 3 liberal justices that remember what the law is, there are 2 conservatives that are embarrassed by facial rejection of things that every law student knows to be true.
So basically what Vladek says is, look, that's the story with this. Yeah. It's really not going to happen. The whole reason the Trump administration is doing this is to distract you from what Tom Homan's going to do with family separation, deportation. That's really the issue. And this stuff gets the headlines, but it's not happening.
Yeah, but by the same token, it's good for the cause overall to find out that Trump declares something stupid and scary to happen, and then it doesn't happen. Good. Tell that story. I know it's not. I'm a little sick of the line of it's a distraction from, but it is. I mean, I understand it as part of the fire hose of bad information and
because there's
flooding
bad
the
stuff
zone.
happening. And, just like with food prices, this goes on the list of FAFO because it's going to affect a whole lot more people than just a few liberal commentators on a podcast. And so, when voters vote for stuff, it's because they want the president to do something that's going to help me. And when it turns out that wasn't my priority, I didn't want you to raise food prices.
Yeah, I wanted
you to seal the border because generic reasons. Everything I read, all the silo news I get says like it's really bad. But I didn't vote for you to raise food prices. And trying to push all of this stuff that we've just been talking about is, frankly, going to raise food prices.
Yeah, Yes, right. Even voters who are like, I don't care about the people involved, but wait a second, I can't afford to go to the diner. How are reporters going to hear me talk about how I still love Trump?
Right.
Food prices are too high. The rent and food prices.
Next on the list we have here is the January 6th stuff, which is irrevocable. And clearly he did it as a message to his brown shirts to be available for stuff that I want you to do that I can't get even Tom Homan and DHS to do. But Natalie Jackson, who is now a pollster, who's now at GQR Research.
She was a pollster before.
Columnist at National Journal. Writes, pardoning the violent J6 is not what majorities support, not even Republicans. New poll out from YouGov, commissioned by a interest group, Protect Democracy. But YouGov's pretty reliable pollster. And here's the data. 75% of Americans oppose pardons for those convicted of using a deadly or dangerous weapon at the Capitol, including 55% of Republicans. 73% of Americans oppose pardons for those convicted of assaulting Capitol police officers, including majority Republicans. 56% of Americans oppose pardons for those convicted of organizing and directing violence on January 6th. 55% of Americans oppose pardons for those convicted of crimes by a federal court. 54% of Americans agree that pardoning people will encourage more of the same, and pardoning those convicted or accused of crimes on January 6th ranked among the lowest priorities for the incoming Trump administration of those tested, with 7% support, alongside investigating former special counsel Jack Smith at 1%, withdrawing from Paris Climate 3%, ending Title IX protections for transgender students 5%, tariffs 6%. They want food and housing prices to be lower. None of this stuff is going to do that. And so when you do unpopular things and you don't do popular things, it's going to eventually catch up to you. And you won't see it on day 3. That's okay. It's still an issue.
Yeah.
Yes, well, nothing ever but,
right.
You got to give it time.
That's true. I mean, this is awfully fast for there to be any, and there's no room for anything other than covering that, okay, the declaration was made, but yeah, you won't, it takes a while to shake out and feel these things. That's absolutely true. I will just throw out this.
Patience is at a premium. You can't just tell people to be patient. They're not going to really be happy with that. But you know what?
No.
You got to give it at least 100 days. That's when presidents are popular. Yeah. Nobody wants to write otherwise because it's a thing. You
can deplore these actions immediately.
Yes, you can.
You are absolutely free to do that, and you should do that.
You can deplore it without expecting it to be deplored.
Yeah, that's true. Right. By people who thought either never heard of it or thought something good was going to happen instead. Yes. I mean, that shouldn't surprise anybody. When people are like, I can't believe anybody could be so dumb as to think X, Y, Z. Right. Okay. But you recognize that they do think that. Yes, they keep printing those.
Right. Well, the other side
groups.
of that coin, though, is you keep saying that this will eventually, but I haven't seen it yet. Well, it's only 3 days.
Well, right. I was just going to say, I could probably get your rapid agreement that the people you keep reading about in these Let's Visit the Zoo articles, I can't believe people say these dumb things that they never heard of XYZ when that's all he talked about during the campaign. How long do you think it would take a person like that to realize that it's time for them to FO about something?
It'll
take a while.
If you want a mental construct to help you with this thought exercise, pretend all voters are the people that appear on America's Funniest Home Videos.
I didn't vote for him to hit a golf ball into my crotch.
These
what
are the
people
I have to speak to. How am I going to do this?
That would probably be a popular show, too, right? Trump now, executive order that people I don't like who are opposed to me, I order you to stand in front of me while I play golf, and I'm going to hit golf balls into your crotch for America's Funniest Home Videos. That might support that. It's quite funny,
So I'm going to conclude my segment with a little piece here from Jonathan Bernstein, political scientist, writing on his blog. Who writes, his blog is called Good Politics / Bad Politics. There's a bunch of political scientists right there.
Yeah.
And he says, governing as an authoritarian, Trump starts undermining the Constitution on day one and makes this point. He did this, he did that. Some of it will be terrible policy, he writes. Some of it may be reasonable policy on which people will disagree. But undermining the rule of law is what is even in the pursuit of perfectly successful and popular policy choices. All of it, whether he succeeds or is defeated, is massively corrosive to the constitutional order. And that said, we know Trump's intentions. We don't know his outcomes. A lot of what Trump did and purported to do in the blizzard of actions on Monday is polled very badly. Mm-hmm. We'll have to see how a president coming in doing unpopular things plays out. That's exactly what I was talking about for the whole show. There's really not much precedent for it. Most presidents start off with the most popular proposals. Yeah, there's some reasonably popular items here, but overall, not so much. And he comes into his presidency moderately unpopular, so it's not as if he has a deep pool of support to fall back on if he alienates some of the people who are willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. See, the whole segment that I did was to set up this paragraph here. Because that's what's going on here.
We should have led with that. No, right? You need the setup.
No, you need the setup. What's more, the constitutional order and the rule of law, and don't think that I planned this. It's just the way it turned out when I picked my articles. What's more, the constitutional order and the rule of law are deeply embedded in the United States. That doesn't prevent real and consequential democratic backsliding, but it does make consolidating authoritarian rule more difficult. And yes, I'm aware many of the ways the nation has failed to live up to its aspirations, sometimes grievously so. That's an important topic. It helps inform what's going on now, but it doesn't guarantee disaster. And while Trump and his people may be better organized than they were last time, they have yet to prove themselves more competent. Trump himself remains as ignorant about policy, remember that Gaza thing that we played, and about how the government works as ever. It's not just personal. There are structural reasons to expect incompetence. I have a lot more to say about that topic for another day because, this is a newsletter, and I'm trying to get you to subscribe.
I see.
But for now, the important point is that Trump fancies himself above the law, and he intends to act as if it's true, and those who want to preserve the republic will need to fight him and his allies. The Constitution won't defend it. Mm-hmm. And that's true. I think, don't lose heart. Don't say it's all over. Don't say we've lost. There's nothing we can do about it. There's plenty we can do about it, but it's on individual issues. And no, everything isn't a distraction. Yes, some things are a distraction. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the Musk thing. We knew he was a Nazi with it. We knew he was a Nazi without it. It's just a waste of time to talk about it. Doesn't change a thing. I'd rather talk about Trump trying to undermine the Constitution and how unpopular the J6 stuff is.
Sure. Well, why not? By the way, this just in,
that's my own
Elon Musk was doing the hokey pokey
yeah.
at the time, and that's why you saw him put his right hand in and then turn around.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Why is he not claiming that? That's an American institution. He doesn't know about it because he's not American at heart. Right. I guess that's it. Okay. Well, has anything else happened?
Not that I want to talk about.
All right. Well, that seems
fair.
fair.
Manaraja does point this out. Just
okay.
in passing
There will be something. Yes.
GOP senators and party leaders have for months insisted Trump wouldn't give blanket pardons to the J6 rioters, instead saying he would do it on a case-by-case basis. So, yeah, go ask him about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what it comes down to. I mean, you all know very clearly that he has said for all 4 years that he was absolutely, positively, 100% going to pardon all of them. People have asked, even the violent ones, and he said, yeah, because they're hostages. And now they all claim they never heard him say that. And this is it. This is just bald-faced dodge.
Republican Senate, for example, on the list of FAFO.
I guess so, except, their tactic for the moment is to pretend they didn't find out. Yeah. I didn't hear that. What do you mean? I just told you that. I didn't hear you tell me that.
Did you hear me tell you that what Trump just did is incredibly unpopular?
I did hear that, but I'm not going to say out loud that I heard you say that. I don't know. I'm going to have to study it for myself.
See what happens.
It's very interesting. A compendium of their responses. Not only I didn't hear that or that's not true, but also something. Well, I'm going to study it on a case-by-case basis. No, you're not. It's already done.
No, you're not.
Right.
I mean, trying to talk to Republican senators is like talking to the people on America's Funniest Home Video. I
guess so. Well, I wouldn't mind seeing them hit.
Why is it funny? Because you see what that idiot just did?
I admit those videos are sometimes funny. Not always the ones with the sports ball going in the crotch necessarily, but failure crash videos are sometimes quite entertaining. I admit to this. But
anyway, that's what I got for today.
Okay.
We'll do more tomorrow.
Sure. I'm
sure stuff will happen. Some of it will be relevant.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Some of it will be fake.
Some will be fake.
Some, but it's worth discussing. Okay, I appreciate it. Stay warm if you can. I mean, get warm and then stay there.
Hey, look, we're already up to 5. Mm-hmm. It's better than negative numbers.
Okay, that's right.
Today's the coldest day of the week.
This is just the friction of our discussion.
I'll tell Abby. It'll make her happy.
All right. I don't know if she'll believe you.
Yes.
But I think it's a good number to report from inside.
Yeah. Well, she only gets her news from Chewy. So she's in a bubble.
Who's going to pick the dog biscuits?
Yeah.
Now we don't know. Okay.
Alrighty. Take care.
I shall carry on from here on. And okay.
Stay calm and carry on.
Yeah, I guess so. You don't have to stay calm, but it might help you. Okay. Let's see. The other things happened, as you know, and we can go over a couple of them. Some of them are in pocket. Maybe it's not quite break time just yet, but it might not be a bad time to pause and catch up with it's a veritable flurry of new subscribers via Patreon in the last couple of days, by which I mean 3. And for some reason, I guess it's some immutable law of the universe that we just can't seem to break and stay above 150 paid subscribers via Patreon. Remember, we do have other methods here, and I guess we're still above the 150 if you're counting the people who have kindly gone out of their way to subscribe via PayPal or other methodologies, including up to and including the use of cursive to sign paper checks. So very archaic methodology there. But welcome then to Roman. It's how he put it in there as pronunciation, I guess, identifying and here occasionally without people's permission to read out what looks to be their full name that comes via the email that they use. We'll just say if you went out of your way to type in ROW-MAN, Roman, we'll just stick with that because that looks to me like the way you wanted to be identified, a new subscriber as of the 16th of January. So from way back in the Biden administration, I guess the people who have been motivated perhaps by the inauguration of Donald Trump and realizing, we might need to sustain some sort of sane-making media here. Josh Lee and Wesley Blickenstaff, who have offered us their surnames. Also subscribing on the 20th and 21st, respectively. Thank you very much for joining the ranks. As I mentioned, for some reason, you add 3 new subscribers, you go and take a look and say, well, we were at 149 before. So somebody must have made an exit along the way. We won't call you out by name. I can identify you, I assure you. But, nobody needs to be called out for something like that. There could be any number of reasons why you withdraw, although something, I'm going to release people from prison to come hunt you down. If I can do that, if I can find a way to do that. But thank you. That's what we need to be focusing on to Roman. Well, that's it's easy enough to pronounce Roman, but if you want that as a nickname, Roman, Josh, and Wesley, thanks very much. Totally appreciate it. We need to do more begging, basically, really. And maybe this will be the time for us to try to look for new ways to make inroads elsewhere. Hope you'll join in evangelizing to your friends to listen into the program and support us along the way. All right. So I mentioned, let's see, there was the AP treatment of Musk's straight arm gesture, embraced by right-wing extremists, regardless of what he meant. Whether it was the hokey pokey or something else. Just to expand on that a little bit more, I know Greg didn't want to talk about it a great deal, which is fine. And I don't know if there's much new to be discovered about it, but if there's anybody who can tell us something new and give us a new angle on it, it's probably Amanda Marcotte. And guess what? That's what she's put time in on today. Elon Musk's salute falls flat. Why far-right trolling isn't working this time around. I think she's recognizing here, yes, this is a game. The disavowal of it as a Nazi salute is part of the troll, and he's trying to, send signals and bother people and disconcert them in certain ways. Why, though, does she think it's not working? Well, we'll come back to it after the break, of course, but I guess we'll give you a little teaser as we head into our music and the break. As Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said to defenders of Musk's provocation, people can officially stop listening to you. And that's always a good thing to do and a good way of making a point. This is an abstract point. But yeah, it's a great way to identify people that are not to be believed during the next 4 years or perhaps ever again. If you are in the business of trying to pretend that this was something other than what you saw with your own eyes, well, then don't listen to these people. That can backfire, and it's happening now. We'll explain more fully after this 1-minute break. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. As we always remind you, it's become reflexive now, but it keeps us balanced. Okay, what's happening here? Again, Amanda Marcotte has an interesting angle on the Elon Musk straight-arm terrorist fist jab thing. One thing that's easy enough to see about Elon Musk's infamous hand gesture from Donald Trump's inauguration celebration is that he acted with deliberation. As the video from the event shows, he threw his back into it, taxing himself enough that he grunted from the exertion. If you haven't seen the video, you might not want to. It's pretty apparent. I mean, it's certainly a conscious gesture, but he does say right away afterwards, if you're interested in fairness, I don't know what that even would entail in this, but if you're interested in putting on some performative quote unquote fairness for Elon Musk, and by the way, it will avail you nothing, right? There's nobody has ever been released by Nazis in the act of being dragged away to a concentration camp. But I was fair to one of you once. Oh, well, then, by all means, be on your way. I mean, that's not going to do anything for you. Anyway, but everybody is, I guess, media people are bending over backwards to be fair, mostly probably because this guy has $300 billion and is a, kind of a jerk and will, happily waste time, money, and energy, because none of that means anything to him, to sue you for saying he gave a Nazi salute when everybody saw what it was. He's even out there apparently threatening people who are tweeting things that say other people have said that this looks like a Nazi salute. I mean, that's pretty hedged, but he's still saying, I may sue you for saying that you heard other people say that it resembled a Nazi salute. It did resemble a Nazi salute. That's why everybody's talking about it. That's why you did it in many cases. Well, in most likely case, anyway. As Amanda Marcotte argues, at the very least, the reason you did it was to you knew that it would create this problem and you wanted to tie people up in knots about it. Now, that's trolling. So what's going on here, right? One thing that's easy enough to see about his infamous hand gesture is that he acted with deliberation. It was quite obviously an effort. He really does grunt in that. And then he turned around and repeated the gesture in the other direction in case anyone missed it. Now, you could argue that's just turning yourself around, after having put your right hand in and right hand out. I didn't see the hokey pokey part, but maybe hokey pokey was just poking the air with your Nazi salute. Possibly. Maybe we've all been doing the hokey pokey wrong all that time. Usually it's just one finger on both hands in the air as you turn yourself around. A little bit like the Trump YMCA dance, I guess. Anyway, it happened. Now, Amanda says, I'm not here to litigate what mainstream media outlets, always wary of defamation lawsuits and angry MAGA emails, used as descriptors of this gesture, so familiar to anyone who has ever seen a film reel of World War II. Instead, I want to flag that we've been down this road before. During the first Donald Trump administration, then white nationalists appropriated the OK hand gesture to troll progressives. To recap, pretending that it was a, quote, joke, white nationalists, starting around 2015, started flashing the OK hand gesture as a sign of racist solidarity. This wasn't the OK sign in the casual way that most people do it. They usually exaggerated it for effect, sometimes flipping their hand gesture upside down to make it look especially odd and therefore noticeable. The goal of this was twofold. First, to signal to fascist sympathizers to fellow travelers. First, to signal fascist sympathizers to fellow. Okay. Second, to bait liberals into ugly, divisive debates about the true meaning of the gesture, quote unquote true. The troll worked beautifully. Every time some Proud Boy or cop or local GOP official or online troll or Brett Kavanaugh aide flashed the exaggerated OK hand gesture, progressives who understood the tactic called it out as fascist signaling. In response, and it doesn't take that long to do, boom, done, Don't want to debate it with you, but there it is. In response, mainstream journalists and moderates, eager to prove their resistance to hysteria, were quick to scold progressives as paranoid, insisting these people weren't real racists, despite their love of Trump, but were instead pretending to be racist to get a reaction. They rarely pause to ask why someone who isn't racist would be fine with merely pretending to be racist, especially since acting like a racist tends to mean people actually see you as a racist. The pretzel logic phase ended a couple years in when one of these ironic racists shot up a mosque in New Zealand, killing 50 people. He flashed the OK hand gesture during his arraignment. Since you can't murder people ironically, the mainstream media had to finally admit the gesture was both a troll and a sincere symbol of white nationalist beliefs. No apologies were made to those who didn't need 50 murders to get the obvious truth, but hey, at least the scolding stopped. The OK sign was just the most prominent version of fascist peekaboo, as she calls it. Good, easy term for it. But there are plenty of other ways that the far-right trolls progressives with coded language only to declare innocence and feign outrage when called out on it. It's not just about baiting the left, though. It's a recruitment tactic. Having provoked progressives into yelling at them, authoritarians will appeal to centrists with some form of, "Don't you hate these paranoid leftists?" Once the hook is in the mouth, they draw their prey in with, "But, fascists did have some good ideas. Would you like to read some Curtis Yarvin about the need to get past dictator phobia?" It's not a great tactic because usually it's sort of like, well, who's Curtis Yarvin? He's this ugly fellow right here. And he says, wouldn't it be great if everybody was a knight or a paladin and we could battle evil or something, but serve our liege lords. Roll for initiative. All right. It's actually quite uninteresting. Thank you. No, I don't want to hear about it. Musk spends all his time on Twitter chatting with far-right trolls, so the odds he's unaware of how this works are approximately zero. His behavior follows the standard script, having made the obvious and obnoxious public gesture. I misread that, so what she said was just obnoxious, but she told me I could read it either way. Having made the obnoxious public gesture, he's now baiting the, quote, liberals are paranoid hook, tweeting, everyone is Hitler. This everyone is Hitler attack is so tired. I misread that one too, but I got it right the second time. But what is actually tired is this exhausting who, me act. The good news is much of the reaction shows that progressives have learned how to deal with peekaboo trolling. Have we? Good. Okay. How do we do it? The first step is to refuse to get sucked into debates about the real meaning of the gesture. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez modeled how to do it, as she often does, after the Anti-Defamation League. This was odd and disappointing. After the ADL, which has drifted toward Trump apology, insisted that Musk merely made an awkward gesture in a moment of enthusiasm. I didn't realize that's what was going on. She responded curtly on Twitter saying, people can officially stop listening to you as any sort of reputable source of information now, which is, very damaging for the ADL. We actually kind of needed them to stay serious throughout this. And what can you do? They've really abandoned that role. Too bad. A huge part of the peekaboo troll is provoking extensive arguments by preying on the often misplaced faith among progressives in the power of reason and evidence. These go-nowhere debates exhaust progressive energies and make it easier for the right to paint the left as shrill. As counterintuitive as it may seem, this whatever dude response can make it easier for people, especially fence sitters, to be open to reason. Instead of feeling browbeaten, they're invited to trust what their own eyes and ears are telling them. That's a more inviting approach to persuading people to look at evidence. By not wasting too much energy doing frame-by-frame analysis to determine if something meets an exacting definition of a Nazi salute, progressives and smart journalists have learned to spend time on what really matters, the context and impacts. Perhaps someone feels unconvinced that Musk meant the gesture he put so much effort into. And it's true. We can't know what Musk meant with absolute certainty, especially since nothing he says about his own thought process can be trusted. Having not wasted energy arguing about the gesture, one can point to the bigger picture. For instance, Musk backs not just MAGA in the U.S., but also the Alternative for Germany, or AfD, party, a radical far-right group whose leaders have been fined for using Nazi slogans, denounced the monuments to Holocaust victims, and have declared Germans to be proud of the achievements of the German soldiers in 2 world wars. Musk persists in championing AfD, even though German courts found some AfD members favor a 2-tier society in which ethnic Germans are given more rights than people from immigrant backgrounds, as NBC News reported. Some news outlets widely sidestepped the go-nowhere debate about what Musk meant to focus on a more productive topic, the impact of his behavior. On this, there is no debate. Loud and proud Nazis were over the moon about the Musk salute. Right-wing extremists are abuzz over Musk's straight-arm salute, declared the headline at Rolling Stone. Wired went with a similar headline. Neo-Nazis love the Nazi-like salute that Elon Musk made at Trump's inauguration. The examples are hard to wiggle away from. Thanking Musk for the gesture, one white nationalist group tweeted, "The white flame will rise again," whatever that's supposed to mean. Another poster who helped create a chatbot named after Adolf Hitler shared the clip with the caption, "Incredible things are happening already, LMAO." Everyone dropped punctuation when they started adopting these acronyms. Anyway, reporting on this impact is far more helpful than digressive debates about the exact or over the exact meaning of the word fascist. Most people, if they made this gesture innocently, would be upset about the neo-Nazis trying to claim common cause with them. As Ed Kilgore argued at New York Tuesday. There is an easy way to clear this up, particularly for someone who owns a major social media platform and uses it very often. All Musk needs to do is make the gesture of, not that gesture, make this gesture, the gesture of denouncing fascism aggressively. He adds that explicitly rejecting fascism and white nationalism should be worth a few dozen tweets, wouldn't you say? Musk, however, saves his ire for anti-racists and seems unworried about neo-Nazis praising him. That is behavior inconsistent with an honest mistake. But it certainly echoes the model of trolling the left that we saw with white nationalists who flashed the OK sign. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what's in Musk's heart, but how he acts. When someone keeps casting warm smiles at racists while mocking anti-racists, they are promoting racism. At every turn, Musk's behavior is friendly and helpful to the worst people in our society. As Ocasio-Cortez said, those who refuse to see his behavior for what it is aren't worth listening to. Yeah, that I think sums it up nicely. There was something I was reading along the way in all of this. Oh yeah, right. People, I guess, claiming to have made this gesture innocently. Well, okay. People do claim that. Or they're saying, I've been photographed with my arm, in that split second raised in what looks like a salute. But, I mean, there are certainly reasons to do it, I guess. I mean, you see people at church very often holding their hands up and sort of waving it at when the speaker, the pastor or whatever is saying something particularly inspirational to them. And if you're photographed at exactly the right moment, they have the arm extended. Yeah, I understand that happens. That's not what Elon Musk was doing. And you should not bother to try and do that, right? There's an easy way to clear it up. You just say what you mean. All right, well, he hasn't bothered doing that. So, okay, that was of some interest and makes a good point here, how to deal with those things. Just move past it. Don't analyze things frame by frame. Just everybody knows what he did, and you can go ahead and see it. All right, let's see. What other things did I have put away for you? Oh, all right. There was of course, the executive order about, DEI employment, and Chris Geidner was the first one I saw, I think, tweeting about the executive order revoking Lyndon Johnson's executive order, and the way he put it, just to clarify what's going on. In a new executive order sent out by the White House, Donald Trump has revoked the Federal Contractor Non-Discrimination Executive Order. It's Executive Order 11246. It was signed by Lyndon Johnson in 1965 and has protected employees of businesses seeking federal contracts from discrimination ever since. So that succinctly wraps that one up. It's a rather stunning one to have spent time and gone out of your way to purportedly revoke. Let's see that. All right, let's see. And I guess a good summation of what Greg and I were talking about earlier about Republicans playing dumb. Posted here by Emily Singer over at Daily Kos, right up on the front page. Republicans are back to playing dumb. I don't think they ever left. As Trump does the unforgivable. And here we're talking about the January 6th pardons and trying to get Republicans on the record. This is, it's just straight up in your face. I'm going to pretend I don't know anything about that. Fearing the wrath of dear leader, congressional Republicans are either refusing to comment on Donald Trump's disgusting pardons of violent Capitol insurrection convicts, or are flat out lying about what Trump actually did to avoid having to criticize his behavior. Hours after being sworn into a second term, Trump gave unconditional pardons to 1,550 people who either pleaded guilty to or were convicted of crimes related to their actions at the Capitol on January 6th. According to the New York Times, the pardons and pending dismissals also covered more than 600 rioters who were charged with assaulting, resisting, or impeding law enforcement officers at the Capitol, nearly 175 of whom were accused of doing so with deadly or dangerous weapons, including baseball bats, 2x4s, crutches, hockey sticks, and broken wooden table legs. Trump also commuted the sentences of members of right-wing militia groups like the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, who were convicted of seditious conspiracy for their roles in planning or encouraging violence at the Capitol. leading to the release of those men from prison. But multiple members of the House and Senate, including Republican congressional leaders, told reporters on Tuesday that they couldn't make a judgment on the blanket pardons Trump issued because they haven't read up on them yet. Or at least, well, they haven't read them or heard about them. The least believable lie on earth is how it's characterized here, and I guess I'd have to agree. I haven't gone into the detail, Republican Rick Scott of Florida said. And here is an embedded tweet from Jay O'Brien, the exchange here being Senator Rick Scott saying, if you violate the law, you should be prosecuted. But then following up, ABC News reporter, and I guess it is Jay O'Brien here, said, what about those January 6 rioters who assaulted police officers and then were pardoned by the president? I haven't gone into the detail. I've just told you what the detail is. Well, I haven't gone into it. Like, that's supposed to be the answer. Well, I haven't gone into it. Well, let's go into it now. Oh, no, maybe even that's too much, gives him too much opportunity to dodge. Let's go into it now. No, I'm busy. I have to do something else. What do you mean go into the detail of it? He did what we just said. That's the detail of it. How do you feel about that? You just heard me say it. You answered me. I still haven't gone into the detail of it. I don't know the cases. I certainly don't want to pardon any violent actors, but there's a real miscarriage of justice here, so I'm totally supportive of it. That's Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. I mean, that's nonsensical. I don't know all the cases. I don't want to pardon any violent actors. Well, he did it. What do you think of that? Well, but there was also a miscarriage of justice here, so I'm totally supportive of it. Totally supportive of it? You've now answered the question. No, I didn't. And what was the miscarriage of justice? Some people were put in jail for a reason I don't like. Yeah, but they were convicted. Okay. Well, miscarriage of justice. Which one? What was it? I don't know. Miscarriage of justice. Bye. Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama said he wouldn't be for pardoning the violent insurrectionists, but wouldn't comment because he, quote, didn't see if Trump did that. Yes, you did. That's the question. Now you've seen it. Republican Senator John Hoeven of North Dakota knew that Trump issued pardons, but played dumb about what they entailed. My understanding, there was a range of actions that he took, and I guess I want to look and see what those are, Hoeven said. It takes all of 5 seconds, and you have done it. You're lying about. My understanding is it was a range of actions. Yeah, including pardoning some of the violent offenders. I want to take a look at that. What do you mean? Through a telescope? We've done it. Other lawmakers straight up lied about the pardons, saying Trump issued them on a case-by-case basis. We're not looking backwards, we're looking forward, Senate Majority Leader John Thune told CNN's Manu Raju, adding, I think they were case-by-case. It wasn't. It was a blanket pardon, 1,550 people. There's no case-by-case anything here, but they'll let you go if you say words that confuse them, like, oh, I think it was case by case. Well, it wasn't. Got to follow up to that? I think it was. That's the follow-up. Meanwhile, a number of GOP lawmakers refused to comment at all on the pardons or tried to shift the conversation to former President Joe Biden's preemptive pardons of his family members, easy enough to anticipate, who were likely to be harassed by the Trump administration. Republican senators are physically shrugging when reporters ask them what they think about Trump pardoning January 6 defendants. Haley Bird Wilt, a Capitol Hill reporter for the nonprofit news outlet Notus, wrote in a post on X, former Senator Marco Rubio, who is now Trump's Secretary of State, said he wouldn't comment. I'm not going to engage in domestic political debates. And why not? Well, I'm Secretary of State now. In another interview with CBS, Rubio refused to comment again, saying, I work for Trump. That's at least, that's a good answer, actually. I assume you're asking me about the Biden pardons of his family, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa told Semaphor's Burgess Everett, a ridiculous whataboutism. I'm just talking about the Biden pardons because it is so selfish. Okay, sure. Senators John Cornyn of Texas and Jim Banks of Indiana also tried to pivot to talking about Biden's pardons. You've seen President Biden's preemptive pardons of his own family. The power of, presidential pardons is one granted to a president and there's really no role for it in Congress. It's the president's prerogative, Cornyn said. The pardons go against what Trump's own vice president said just a few days ago that Trump would do. He doesn't listen to that guy, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, he said no, it won't be for the violent ones. But it was. To be sure, a few Republicans criticized Trump. I'm disappointed to see that, and I do fear the message that is sent to these great men and women that stood by us. Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, one of the few Republicans who's actually stood up to Trump in the past, said, anybody who is convicted of assault on a police officer, I can't get there at all. I think it was a bad idea. Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina said, well, I think I agree with the vice president. Mitch McConnell told Semaphore, referring to Vance's belief that violent insurrectionists shouldn't have been pardoned. No one should excuse violence, and particularly violence against police officers. Well, you could have done something about it, but you didn't. And it was 100% clear at the time you were asked to vote on the conviction of Trump's second impeachment that police officers had, in fact, been attacked and injured by the rioters. But he ignored it. So anyway, of course, we don't want to praise anyone for doing the bare minimum and speaking the truth about Trump's awful actions, and McConnell is largely to blame for the fact that these pardons took place at all, as he refused to convict Trump in the impeachment trial, there you are, in January of 2021, February, allowing Trump to run for president again. So there's that. Plus, of course, just, to mention it again, the people who were pardoned, he left you languishing there for some or all of the last 4 years because he was, he didn't want to pardon you then in January 2021 when he still could because he needed it to run for president on. You had to be languishing in jail in order for him to use that in the campaign. And you should be pretty mad about having been October surprised by your own president. Don't you think? Well, apparently not. Let's see. What's this one here? Oh, yes. Right. Something I was reminded of when we were talking to Greg earlier today about the first 1-2 days of the administration. We were talking about it in the sense that people would have to wait a little while in order to find out how some of these dumb ideas and dumb actions shake out. But speaking of things happening unexpectedly quickly or happening in the first couple of days, we knew that he was going to launch a flurry of executive actions. He promised everybody that he would. But this one, I guess I didn't expect to see right away, even though this too he talked about during the campaign and post-campaign after he won, when he was talking about how he's going to get his appointees approved. Politico reports under this headline, Trump pushes Hill Gop on recess appointments, debt limit. A White House meeting on the president's first full day back in office emphasized unity. It didn't really, but emphasized unity, I guess, among Republicans. And he had to emphasize that because they have not got it. So there is that. But just from the headline alone, I just want to point this out. Like all these media outlets are in the business of characterizing everything that he does, even if they disagree with them, because they are dictatorship ideas, fascist ideas, autocratic in their execution, whatever it may be, or they're just bad ideas. They're still nonetheless saying, well, this is a muscular approach to things. This shows that he's a strong president. So from a political science perspective, I just have to point out that if you are talking about recess appointments on January 21st, right, that is not something that a strong president does. A strong president doesn't have to be talking about recess appointments on day one of his administration. It's really quite ridiculous. I guess day 2, because it's January 21st. It's way too early to be talking about that. But he's basically saying, I already know that my appointments are so bad and so controversial that we might have to do them as recess appointments. They'll be blocked. Ordinarily, a president has little to no idea who's going to be blocked on January 21st. But this one does. I guess the only way you could look at it as a strong thing is to talk about it as a strong man move. That is to say, I am aware that my appointees are so controversial that even on the first full day of my own administration, I know that I don't have the support of my party, or I may not have enough support among my own party to ram people through. So I need to start pulling parliamentary tricks in order to get people in place. Rachel Bade, Meredith Lee Hill, Jordan Carney have the byline on this one. We'll read it on our way into the break, but I've expressed the idea I wanted to. So good. I got what I wanted out of this one. President Donald Trump, which I didn't want out of this, prodded congressional leaders to consider recess appointments for his top nominees and expressed interest in trading California wildfire aid for a debt limit increase in a White House meeting on Tuesday, resurfacing two controversial proposals floated during the returning president's transition. So we heard about the weakness of having to resort to recess appointments, true, but then this one too. Well, we'll leverage aid to California for a debt ceiling increase, a debt ceiling deal with the Democrats, which is interesting too, because I don't know that Democrats have ever not voted to actually fix this thing. Hi everybody, it's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and patreon.com, patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. All right, let's continue going through this. Let's see, what do we have open here? All right, Politico's weird article about Trump pushing for recess appointments already on January 21st, and then the debt ceiling deal. And just to clarify, I know we were running out of time, so I said I don't know that Democrats have ever not agreed to go along with a debt ceiling increase. That's not exactly true. And back in the days when everybody realized that as unseemly as it was to have to vote to increase the debt ceiling or suspend the debt ceiling, it used to be the case that the majority party, and usually the majority party also held the White House at the time. But even if you didn't, it was essentially realized that, okay, the majority party is responsible for doing the responsible thing and increasing the debt limit so that the economy doesn't crash. And the minority party would vote against it because they had the luxury to do that. And you held, 220, 250 seats in the House. It was enough by far, ordinarily, if you had a little bit of party discipline to say, well, as distasteful as this is, we will do the job. And the minority will walk away because they have the ability to do that. But if the roles were reversed, they would do the same thing. And it was largely true throughout our history. And then it became a real political football in the last couple of years. And, Republicans made a much bigger show about, we'll never vote for this, that, or the other thing with respect to the debt. And it would end up, but then even there, it would fall to Democrats to say, well, you have to bring it to the floor in a funny way, usually through suspension of the rules. But yeah, we will, even if it means doing a favor for a Republican president, as they did during Trump's first administration, we'd just rather not crash the economy. As distasteful as it is, we'll take care of things. And so here Trump feels like, well, we need to condition aid to California on, let's say, among other things, and the thing is he'll keep changing the deal, right? But among other things, Republican support for increasing the debt ceiling or suspending it again so that I don't run into it. And Democrats have always said, we'll do, I know this job sucks, but we'll do the job of not crashing the economy, even if you won't. So I'm not certain that, this is a play that is necessary to make, but I guess don't tell them and continue on. Anyway, here's where we are. The discussions about both of these things, both the debt limit increase and conditioning California wildfire aid and recess appointments. These discussions, which were described by two people granted anonymity to describe the private talks, also touched on his proposal to exempt at least some tip income from federal taxes and his efforts more generally to extend tax cuts. So once again, it's like, well, I need this favor, so I'll trade you something or I'll leverage something and I'll give California aid for its wildfires if you do this. All right, fine, we will. Oh, okay, but also I want you to exempt tip income from taxes. All right, fine. Oh, but also I want more power to extend tax cuts. It's never enough with this guy. Trump described wanting to use wildfire aid as a bargaining chip in comments to reporters shortly after the meeting. They're going to need a lot of money. And generally speaking, I think you'll find that a lot of Democrats are going to be asking for help. So I think maybe that makes it more one-sided. I think we're going to do very well. Of course, in about 2 seconds, Texas and Florida are going to be asking for help because we told you about the cold weather. That included dumping snow on Texas, which, as you know, that means the electrical grid fails. And even in Florida, but throughout the South, where Republicans are largely in control, they're going to be asking for disaster relief very shortly. We'll see whether anybody has the sense to see if that offsets the requests. But given that Donald Trump and Russ Vought and others are convinced that they can impound federal funds that have been appropriated by Congress, this means you can strike a deal and say, all right, we'll not condition aid to California in exchange for your help in passing aid to Florida and Texas. And if they strike such a deal, which, I guess they shouldn't because it's, look, Republicans control this chamber. You pass this stuff. But since there are weirdos out there that won't pass it, they might need Democratic help for it. Maybe they do it by suspension of the rules. But now, of course, these guys can pass it under a new deal that says, all right, no restrictions for anybody, and then have Donald Trump step in and say, well, I declare that there will be restrictions on the California aid, but not the Florida and Texas aid because I want to. And we'll all be litigating that for the next 2 years. Meanwhile, inside the meeting, Trump emphasized the need for Republicans to stick together as a party. The one thing the Democrats have going for them is they stick together. One of the people familiar, I thought that was Trump. One of the people familiar with the meeting said, paraphrasing Trump's message, no grandstanding, just sticking together and deliver and we will win. Really? Okay. I mean, in House votes when Republicans are in the majority, yes. Or when Democrats have a very narrow majority, they are able to cobble together their votes. That's true. The talks also touched upon a crucial and still unsettled strategy choice, whether to package the GOPS policy agenda in one big, beautiful bill or break it up into two, a question dividing House and Senate Republicans. Trump reiterated his preference for one massive bill, which, as you may recall, used to be anathema to basic Republican dogma. We don't want these giant bills. They got to be 3 pages or less. Okay, sure. Anyway, never mind. What am I going to prove? Hypocrisy? One massive bill he preferred to be passed through the House, through the party line reconciliation process, I should say. But that did not change the status quo. House Republicans will continue to push their one-track strategy while Senate Republicans will ready a 2-bill backup. In a sign of the ongoing clash, House Majority Leader Steve Scalise said the one-bill strategy was settled, while Senate Majority Leader John Thune left the door open to his chamber's alternative. We should probably skip that part. That's not really all that interesting to me, even as a process guy at this particular moment, but I guess as we get closer, the recess appointments push first resurfaced last year after the election when it appeared that several of Trump's cabinet appointments totally sucked. It doesn't say that in here, but that's the problem. They say could get snarled in the Senate because they totally suck. Recess appointments could allow some nominees to take office at least temporarily without a confirmation vote, but talk of using the dormant power has ebbed as Trump's nominees, such as defense pick Pete Hegseth, improved their standing with Republican senators, but Trump raised it anew as an option in a smaller Oval Office session with Johnson, Thune, and Vice President J.D. Vance. One of the people who described the meeting said Trump expressed confidence in how Thune had handled his nominees so far, but said recess appointments could be a possible break glass option if some bog down. Speaking to reporters after the meeting, Thune didn't embrace Trump's push for recess appointments, though he acknowledged that the president has been interested in the idea. As for the fire aid for debt limit trade, GOP lawmakers who first raised the idea with Trump at recent Mar-a-Lago meetings said he was interested in the prospect at the time. That would mean making a debt limit hike part of a larger agreement around the bipartisan government funding talks. Representative Kevin Hern of Oklahoma, Republican of course, who attended the meeting as GOP policy chair, said Trump was agnostic on how a debt deal got done so long as it gets done. He's leaving this up, and rightfully so, to the leader and to the speaker, and however they can move it best through their respective ends of the Capitol. The wider House and Senate GOP leadership teams met with Trump for more than an hour on Tuesday as they tried to hash out the way forward on his early agenda. Johnson and Thune want sign-offs from Trump on a series of key decisions on the Republican agenda. GOP leadership and Trump's team held several calls this past weekend during which they tried to form more of a consensus on the way forward before the Tuesday meeting. So it doesn't sound like they're getting anywhere. They want Trump to make play calls on some of the biggest intra-party fights, including how to move a sweeping tax policy bill, what to do about the swirling debt limit fight, and how to handle the mid-March government funding deadline. Now what? I'm just realizing, but Trump has told them already. They want him to make one big, beautiful bill with lots of sweeping tax policy, and I want a debt limit increase. That's it. I mean, there's nothing else. Getting Trump's blessing for how to tackle the fiscal battles could help Johnson mollify his hardliners, unify his thin conference, and satisfy growing concerns that he's losing precious time to get going. Johnson has struggled to unite his conference, where he has a one-vote margin. At the same time, having Trump articulate what he wants also lowers the risk that Johnson or Thune find themselves at odds with the leader of their party. Only by a little bit, by the way, because he'll change his mind. After they do what he says, he'll change his mind about what he said and criticize them for it. Anyway, you should look out for that. I'm going to jump out of this, really, because it doesn't tell us anything about it. But basically what it says is Johnson and Thune are saying to the White House, tell us how to fix this. Tell us how you want it. And we'll do that because we have no ideas. Because nobody has any idea what you want to do. And Trump says, I don't know. You should come up with the idea. And I reserve the right to stab you in the back if I don't like it. And that's where they are. So it's tough. Ticklish situation at the very least. Okay, let's see. Other things to bring you up to date with, and there are many. Part of me wants to go back now to more about the weirdos we were reading about, right? Remember the Greenland bros and the Praxis thing and the network state? I wanted to read a little bit more about that. I kept that article on hand. But then I grabbed the links that they used to try to describe more about what's going on here. Let me read you, first of all, another entry maybe from America 2.0 News, Decoding the Network State. Again, it was Dave Troy trying to describe what they're talking about. Remember that really weird, unhinged Twitter thread that we read where the guy was saying, I just wanted to build a society of portly merchants and muscular warriors. What? Very Curtis Yarvin-ish in the sense that it was, very D&D derived. Here's Dave Troy's explanation just from January 6th of this network state thing, decoding the network state. Let's spend a little time on that. The network state movement, remember, may sound new, but it's just rehashing old ideas of libertarian exit that ultimately aid our adversaries. And I guess here they're just looking for a way to, I guess if you can claim that cryptocurrency is, well, we made our own currency, our own stateless currency, unregulated by anybody, but it kind of isn't, and it's only worth anything if you can convert it into currency that people will accept in a store somewhere. They're just saying, well, what if we just cyber created a city and it was totally unregulated because libertarianism? The answer is it would collapse shortly and be worthless like most of the things you do, but they haven't done it yet, so they can still give TED Talks about it. As technology entrepreneurs have become increasingly influential within the American right, many have looked for explanations about their motivations and goals. Anyone who spends even a little time researching this topic will land on the nascent network state movement eventually, which seeks to replace nation states like in its entirety. That's my hope, but I'll take some idiot giving us an autonomous city somewhere. Remember, for 3 days once they had a meeting in, was it even El Salvador or something? It was crazy. Some Central American country that said, we'll have a crypto conference and someone will rig up a vending machine to work on Bitcoin for 5 seconds and we'll declare that, the future of currency. Anyway, this basic pitch, which seems to make sense on the surface, and it really does not, is this. If I'm not being well served by my government, shouldn't I be able to take my business, quote unquote business, that is to say, my whole life, elsewhere and get a better deal? Maybe. But this is not an original idea. Here's a breakdown of what the network state idea is, where it came from, how it fits into this bigger geopolitical picture. This is as far as we got yesterday, just to give you a taste of it. First up, Milton Friedman is invoked here. Free to choose. What? In 1980, economist and free market advocate Milton Friedman published a popular book called Free to Choose, A Personal Statement. It was very influential, apparently, within the conservative movement, and particularly within the Reagan administration and the Council for National Policy, which was founded to advance the conservative cause. The gist of the book is that free markets increase choice and prosperity, now taken as gospel, I think, and that those ideas should be applied when considering concerns such as welfare, education, housing, and regulation. And I guess that's really what they're aiming at here, is these guys are, I guess, a little bit jealous of Milton Friedman. I don't care about how, except insofar as I could imitate it, but why is it? Why are they taking your ideas, which were considered a little bit wacko at the time, perhaps, and now they're gospel? How can I get to that for my ideas? And I guess the issue here is, well, the idea that free markets promote freedom and free choice and prosperity is a little easier to understand. If we offer lots of choices for things and people get to choose what they want, I guess you can come to the conclusion that free markets foster freedom of choice. If your proposition is muscular warriors and portly merchants will increase prosperity, people will say, I don't understand. How does a merchant being fat help increase prosperity? Well, he's fat because he's doing good business. And he's doing good business because he's offering you what you want, or even what you want is a choice of many things that you might want. Okay, but then you're just saying Friedman. Why is the fat guy in this? I don't understand what you're talking about. How can I make this gospel for everybody? Well, you can't. It's too dumb, and all it is a rehashing of somebody else. Yeah, but what if it has crypto in it? I don't know how to make that popular, guy. It's just not, as much as we might not really like or agree with Milton Friedman about various specifics, he did some heavy thinking about things and couched things in terms that were acceptable to people. And you're talking about gnomes and goblins, and that's not going to work. It's just not. I'm sorry. And nobody's going to give you part of a remote island to pretend that everything should be determined by dice rolling or complete anarchy either. It doesn't work. Anyway, Friedman's book was accompanied by an influential 10-part television series. You could do that, which aired, ironically, on PBS. And that is sort of ironic. A little socialism to get your free market capitalism going. But okay, I can see how an ironic thing like that. Now, meanwhile, I guess you could say, well, we might not get a 10-part television series, but we did get a series of 10 movies about goblins and hobbits. Why hasn't this caught on? And it's because there's no connection. And you're dumb. And your ideas are undercooked. Anyway, the series lent an air of respectability and reasonableness to Friedman's ideas, probably true, and provided a backstop for legislators looking to enact Reagan's policy agenda, even as most of the ideas presented were only slightly removed from the relatively extreme free market ideas that Friedman and his gang of Chicago boys economists had tried to implement under the Pinochet regime in Chile. That'll ring bells for a lot of you, but it is a little esoteric. If you don't know that history, it's certainly worth stopping and reading. And there are plenty of links in here, too, that you should follow. But fast forward to the inaugural and overwhelmingly male Network State Conference in Amsterdam in October 2023, where Friedman's grandson, Patri, is that right? P-A-T-R-I, is one of the primary ideological leaders of the movement. I guess he has reason to believe he could succeed, because, I don't know, my grandfather once did good. Yeah. Are you smart? I don't know. Friedman held court with a cadre of enthralled attendees as he dispensed aphorisms and pithy sound bites. Usually takes more than that. Friedman is also known for his prior work in the field of libertarian exit on a project called seasteading. The idea here being, we've mentioned it, I think, if you could find ways to live in international waters, you could claim sovereignty. And, you guessed it, not pay taxes. Unsurprisingly, this effort was also backed by arch-libertarian turned political kingmaker Peter Thiel, who embraces all sorts of things like vampirism. So what can I tell you? By the way, you know who successfully launched a libertarian movement and lives free right here in the middle of the United States? That bird outside has never paid taxes, and yet depends on socialist handouts. But, you know, the whole point is that's okay. Ayn Rand did. Anyway, we could all become birds instead of goblins. How about that? No. But slightly more plausible. There are birds. There aren't hobbits. Okay. What's up next? Balaji Srinivasan and Curtis Yarvin. Yuck. While Milton and Patri Friedman provided provided much of the ideological roots for the network state concept, which we still don't really understand, entrepreneur and investor Balaji Srinivasan has helped crystallize it into a movement with actual followers. I mean, that's a good thing to have actual followers, but almost any dumb thing can get actual followers if you only need a few. In 2017, under the first Trump administration, Peter Thiel proposed that Srinivasan lead the Food and Drug Administration. Well, that bid was not successful, but Srinivasan has continued to maintain close ties to Thiel and incoming DOJ co-chair Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, I point out to you that this is an article from January 6th, I want to say. Yeah, we were busy on January 6th, but January 6th of this year, not the infamous January 6th. And we were talking about incoming DOJ chair Vivek Ramaswamy here. Vivek Ramaswamy is out. It is December 22nd, and he is gone. We haven't discussed that, but perhaps you've seen it in passing in the news. Elon Musk has more or less forced him out of DOJ. His ideas proved to be the much less popular as part of it, and that's over, and it's only 2 weeks later. Curtis Yarvin, a reactionary neo-fascist anti-democracy blogger, which, again, who cares? I blogged that I wished there was a king, and he had a magical sword. No. Not really. Not interested. But he also, of course, writes under the name of Mencius Moldbug because he loves Excalibur and dice things, is also influential in the network state movement. I don't know. There's money to be had there, so he pretends he likes it. Yarvin is well known to those monitoring the rise of the global neo-fascist movement. This author, first wrote about him in 2017, but he has also become very influential in sovereignty circles. Yarvin created something Urbit. it's I don't know what that means even. He created something called, okay, that's probably missing from the text, something called Urbit, U-R-B-I-T, which he envisions as a kind of computer operating system to promote sovereignty. Now, he says he created it, but he envisions it as a kind of operating system. Does he? Or did he not create something? Is he thinking of creating something, or has he created something that he thinks people can use as a computer operating system designed to promote sovereignty, but no one's done it yet because no one knows what the effing F that means? Like, what?
What the hell is supposed to do, you moron?
Change the emphasis. Now, what else are we supposed to do, you moron? That would probably help figuring things out. What is it? No one knows. It's garbage. He envisions it as a kind of computer operating system to promote sovereignty, espousing such values as, quote, digital independence, decentralized control, and conservation of sovereignty. Notably, Yarvin suggests that the purpose of Urbit is not to violate the law. However, one could interpret it as a platform for nerds, to be sure, they actually say that here, to eventually grow a network of individuals who might be able to become subject to different law. What? If you're getting the feeling that this is all impossibly geeky, or that you've just in error walked into your high school's Ayn Rand book club, that's understandable. This is deeply nerdy stuff with limited popular appeal. Tim Walz got it right. Weirdos. But it now has outsized influence, exactly because of its penetration within the world of weirdos. Well, they say here, powerful tech entrepreneurs. Next up, the battle for San Francisco. In a TED Talk that I gave in 2014, I took note of a conflict that was brewing in San Francisco between the tech industry and the rest of the city. Over the last decade, that conflict has intensified and crystallized into political activism backed by Srinivasan and other network state advocates. I know they're gaining power, and that's saddening, but remember how they're gaining power, not by pretending that they're goblins and portly merchants mean anything, but by engaging in the real system first. Can you dismantle it and maybe build something in its stead? Possibly, but the only way there is through the real world. So, sorry, guys. State advocates Gary Tan, the current CEO of famed technology incubator Y Combinator, has called for a kind of tech Zionism in San Francisco. Ooh, that's not going to help you at all. Wherein citizens loyal to the movement would be called Greys. Because why? Because, I don't know, sounds cool. And they would wear symbols to identify each other and acknowledge each other on the street. Okay, good fantasy. Some have noted that Luigi Mangione, who murdered United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, identified with the Grey Tribe influences. Wow, okay, so murder. That really seems like not what they're talking about. And also kind of seems not like what Luigi people think Luigi was talking about. Unless, of course, he's totally crazy, which he was. Did he have a point? I don't know. Don't even ask. He's just, this is dumb. If to the extent he identifies with this, no. He had no point. Several writers have done an excellent job outlining the influence of the network state movement on San Francisco politics, which I thought Republicans hated. And in more detail than I can get into here, believe it or not, Gil Duran, who is based in the East Bay, has written extensively on the topic for both the New Republic and for his blog, The Nerd Reich. That's pretty funny and pretty on the nose. Emily Mills has been tracking local San Francisco politics and the incursion by Srinivasan's allies closely, as has another tech industry analyst who goes by Shanley. And tech has made significant gains in San Francisco, with OpenAI CEO Sam Altman serving as an advisor to Mayor-elect Daniel Lurie. This basically all just a cousin once removed from white supremacists moving to rural Idaho and hoping to take over an already established town there. It's an old hat. But like with everything else, we have, direct farm-to-table dairy product delivery to your house via Amazon.com, but that's called a milkman, or reinventing the bus for Google, right? Privatize everything everywhere is the next section here. We'll read through it as we make our exit for the day. The impulse behind the network state concept is that if privatization is good for some things, it's necessarily good for everything. Well, that's a failure of logic. The goal for Srinivasan, Yarvin, Friedman, Thiel, Musk, and their allies is to remove as many barriers to privatization as possible, and their efforts have borne fruit all over the world. From ZEDEs, that in Spanish, Zonas de Empleo y Desarrollo Económico in Honduras, and that may have been where they had that crypto conference. I can't remember now. Quiet, birds. I know you want to establish your own state. Hush. To free ports in England, the entire country of El Salvador under dictator Nayib Bukele. No, that brings me back to there. That must have been the crypto thing after all. NEOM in Saudi Arabia, whatever that may stand for, and even a new tech-forward city near Travis Air Force Base called California Forever. Oh my gosh, we're way behind on our music. Sorry, Justice, we got to get out of here. California Forever, what is it? No one's heard of it because it's nerdy, stupid, and weird. But it's backed by venture capitalist Mark Andreessen, another chief weirdo. The Trump campaign has also been touting freedom cities based on the concept of charter cities. Remember, we're gonna build beautiful, beautiful cities with inspiring architecture in the middle of I don't know where, and I don't even know what we're gonna do with it, but they're gonna be freedom. So there you go. Milton Friedman's naive idea that the way to fix government is to make it compete for business underlies all of these efforts. Except he probably stopped because he was like, oh, now my thoughts are getting dumb. Another group called Logos Network organized a parallel society congress in Bangkok in November of 2024. Everyone cool went to it, right? Aimed at envisioning a post-nation state world where parallel society would replace government services with offerings from the private sector. Srinivasan hosted a second network state conference in Singapore in September of 2024, where his group is working on building network schools, which have capacities for, one network school, with capacity for 150 students to connect and take classes in building their own international communities around the network state concept. Wow, online school, thanks for inventing that, dude, really.
From networksradio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, look, there's more to it. It's disturbing to have to read through and muck through, but I guess if we're going to find out what these weirdos are up to, this is the way to do it. In the meantime, you want more concrete stuff? Hey, Justice Putnam's got you covered with the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy next right here on Netroots Radio. Do stay tuned. It'll be worth it. We'll see you tomorrow.